is the Deputy Director of Policy for Movement for Change, the Afafranto Movement, and Albert Tete Amafu, Spoken Word Minister, CEO, PAL Foundation and Verbal Transformers. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome. Thank you for your time. How are you doing?
Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting us to the studio.
Welcome back home.
Yes.
How was it out there?
Yeah, first of all, I see that your information is a bit archaic.
MBA,
No, actually,
playwright,
yes,
curator of Workbejeke.
Well, so that is actually the Workbejeke that I meant. So
Okay.
now the project that we are pushing is the Mansa World. That is the success of Workbejeke.
Right,
Obviously, Workbejeke is still very much an important part of the heritage and where we have come from in terms of the work we've done. That was Heritage Theatre series.
Right.
So we moved from Heritage Theatre series to the Mansa World. So that's actually what is what's what we are pushing internationally now. And so I describe myself as a poet, playwright, and a creative entrepreneur.
Right.
That entrepreneurial part is very important for what we're doing. Especially, we don't usually think of creatives as entrepreneurs.
Right.
But if you look of what I do, Nanasa do is really serious business, trying to build something and build it into a sustainable level. So
That's
yes,
right.
I'm excited to be here. I haven't been in this studio for so many years, I think, and it's good to see the improvement. It means that at least something positive is happening.
Under the watch of young people.
And of course, it's good to share the space with my brother Nanasa and to all the other brothers and sisters who will be joining on call.
Nana,
Yes, sir.
how are you?
Well, by God's grace.
Diaboko.
Already, I'm baby. I'm today.
Nice.
Nice.
I'm greater than Accra. I'm here with Helen Apiampofo, the delectable. Now we get into a conversation. First question, and I ask you this: have the youth of Ghana failed Ghana?
And the youth of Ghana failed Ghana. So, good morning, everybody. When you ask the question, somebody might want to situate it in current times. But over the years, we've had young people who have grown to be, older people and all of that. So we can have a yes, or we can have a no. However, it's the young people who continue to carry hope and always pass it on.
Right.
And so, in that regard, I would say the young people of Ghana have held their place, as guardians of hope, wanting to make the society better. However, once they cross the threshold and they lose the pigment of youth, something seems to take over. And then you wonder where all the brilliant ideas went. You wonder where all the great deeds went. There seems to be something above that realm of being young that, saps, in quote, let me say goodness or great ideas out of us. Then let me also say in that regard then that young people, to a large extent, have failed us. Because if you are the one here watching and saying, Charlie, this man is mismanaging himself or he's not doing things right. Every time I walk into a government office, I use a folklore board, for example.
Right.
Look, here's a bunch of young people who have now been recruited. You complain, I walk into a government office, I want something, it takes so long. Now you are the litmus test.
Right.
It's now young people running this space. If somebody walked in, would they say the same things you used to say before you got to be employed in this space? So you realize that you have a lot of young people in civil service, a lot of young people in our police, in our security services and all of that. Yet all the things we complain of, corruption, all these things are still happening on our watch. So this is a very nuanced conversation, depends on how you choose to look at it. Have young people failed at what I do, at what Chief does? I will say we have not failed.
Okay.
Or we are not showing signs of failure. These are signs of things that will work.
Right.
Look at the seat you are holding for Ghana. For how many years? You have been on this seat and we have had positive results. Check the media space. There are people we can name, but not to name names, who have followed a course, picked up a story and said, look, there's something going on in this community that is not working. We want to see an end to it, and they have seen an end to it. Those young people are doing amazing things. So in my poetry, I said, there is night, there's definitely going to be day. Without night, there cannot be day. That is the only standard of measuring failure. It simply means some have really held their fort and done the right things for us, for starters.
Chief, then comes the question: if we haven't failed, then what is holding us back? What is this whole point of stagnation, for want of a better expression? What would you say?
Are you assuming that my position is that we haven't failed?
Well, this is what Nana says. So, unless you have a divergent view,
yes, I mean, obviously from from a philosophical point of view, I would have to agree that it's a nuanced conversation. You can look at it from either ways, whether we have failed or we haven't failed, and you can give various reasons to back your point. But for the sake of this conversation, I would staunchly say that we haven't failed. And I'll build it up by saying that to whom much is given, much is expected. The question is what has been given to young people, and how have we used what is given to us. Obviously, young people do not wield the overarching power that drives the economic and social transformations of our country. We are part of a system, and we act accordingly to the system. I think that if you look at what has happened in our space, in spite of the system, you've actually seen a lot of young people trying to thrive, trying to make something meaningful out of their lives, And if we take our space, for example, the creative space, this is a space that has historically been abandoned without much support, whether from policy, from private sector, right? It has taken, passion, commitment, entrepreneurial visions and drive to really build this creative industry to a point where now people are beginning to see that it may have an opportunity, right? And I can look at where I have come from, colleagues I have worked with, and say that we have failed, considering that we haven't been given much, and we have tried to compete, around the world. And right now the world is, as we say, tried, but it's a global village. So we're competing with people who have access to the best education, the best technology, the best, financial arrangement, interest rates in Ghana around 30%. We're supposed to compete with people who have interest rates at 1%, 2%, 3%, and even some people negative percent. And it was until just recently that Japan, increased their interest rate. So I don't know, it was about 1% or so. So if you take everything in a mix based on everything we have, given to us, I would say that we've actually done well in holding the fort, and trying to make something meaningful out of our lives. Yes, and then connected to your question, which was. I've established my position.
What is then? Yeah, you have established position that we've not failed.
We haven't failed. Well, we cannot fail.
Then what then now is holding us back or keeping us at a standstill?
Yes, because at the end of the day, you are only as good as the system that you find yourself in. We are young people, let's say, in a boat or in a ship, and it is the responsibility of the captains of the ship to steer us in the right direction. No matter how we work in the engine of the ship, unless there is a direction of the captain that is taking us to a particular destination, no matter how much we work within the system, at the end of the day, we will still be stagnated, right? So once we find ourselves, the young people who leave this country and implant in different territories thrive. They thrive because the conditions are there. But we are like seedlings planted on hard soil with no nutrition, so we suffer to sprout. And so it's just a few that are able to sprout, and the many, will wither and die at a very young age. We live in a country where if you are not careful, your dreams and aspirations will be killed before they even, sprout. And a lot of people suffer from that. You can't even have the space to dream because you're thinking about what to eat, and when you are consumed with hunger and where to get your next meal, the lofty dreams and ideals of this world are things that would escape you, right? So I would say that yes, the system that we have found ourselves in is what has held us back. And as we converse more, we would unpack these issues.
Pius Enam Hajide is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority. Joins us on the phone line. Pius, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, good morning, Johnny. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Today is International Youth Day, and we are asking the question here: have the youth of Ghana failed? My two panelists in the studio, Nana Sasi and Chief Momen, have all said that we haven't failed. We are actually doing our best in spite of certain conditions. How would you, as Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority, measure whether or not the youth of Ghana have failed or have survived and thrived?
Well, thank you very much, my brother Johnny. Good morning to you and to my colleagues, fantastic gentlemen in the studios, and good morning also to our listeners. Please indulge me 1 second to seize the moment to congratulate the young people of our country on the International Youth Day, and also to commend them for their sacrifices and their achievements. And I also ask that we all join our hands together, put our hands to the wheel. There's so much we have done, but there's so much we can do as a people to move not just the youth of our country, but indeed the entire country forward. the entire country forward. Okay, so
Hello, Pius.
3FM 92.7.
Hello, Pius.
hello, sir.
Yes, we can't hear you.
Oh, you couldn't hear me?
Yeah, no, we heard you up to a point. The line broke at some point, but we heard you up to the point where you wished the youth of this country International Youth Day, and beyond that, we didn't hear anything more.
Great.
Great.
I was just moving into the matter at issue, the question you are asking whether the young people of our country have failed our country. And it will be very, very difficult for me to accept such a proposition. I would rather say that having worked as Deputy Minister for Youth and Sports and now Chief Executive Officer, National Youth Authority, following the experts of the young people, working closely with them, I would rather suggest that the young people have continued and should continue to contribute to our national development efforts, their engagement in social, political, and economic initiatives that drive our progress and create our commonwealth should rather what must highlight. We must highlight that on a day like this. I've seen young people do well in the entrepreneurship. I've seen their contributions in technological advancement and our digital drive into the future. I've seen how the young people have played crucial roles in even promoting our democracy, their civic participation and engagement. Have there been challenges? Of course, there have been challenges. And I will be the first to admit that even in the face of the limitations that we are confronted with as young people of our country, we still are not relenting. We are committing our energies to our personal development, creation of the Ghanaian Commonwealth. And so if there is anything that we should be discussing on a day like this, apart from the achievements, the contributions of the young people, the questions are that how do we prepare the youth of our country for the global competition that is increasingly becoming keener. I mean, Ghana, we now are competing with everybody. America, the Japan that my colleagues spoke about is now a small village in the palm of everybody. It's a global village right now. And so what is the nature of training and education that our young people are being given that prepares them for the future of work? It is good to learn when Diego de Azambuja landed on the shores of Elmina, for instance. But at the same time that we are still learning when the good old man arrived on the shores of Elmina, our colleagues elsewhere, they are learning coding, they are learning ICT, okay? And so there has to be a shift, and rightly so. I commend the administration, the current government, for its attempts to refocus our education onto the STEMs, the sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I think that this prepares us for the future. Again, we must relate our education both in terms of our head, our hearts, and our hands. Technical and vocational education is the can-do spirit of the Ghanaian youth must be rallied and leveraged to create the rapid socioeconomic development that we are looking for. We have a situation where our training produces mechanical engineers who, when their own vehicles break down, then they have to drive to the roadside fitting workshops and the mechanics. And so we have to call into sharp question the relevance of our educational system, and therefore applaud the attempt to move us away from what it has been from the days of yore to what we are seeing now. You go to Abumasu, for instance. I was there with my colleagues at the National Youth Authority to see the innovation in education by the introduction of the STEM schools. And so we also have to look at the barriers that militate against our entrepreneurial drive, access to capital, for instance. And that is why when we are discussing a certain 8.5 billion support to SMEs, which is largely controlled by the youth and women of our country, then you see that we are moving in the right direction.
So for example, Pius, Chief Moment here, he's been traversing the world with Mansa World, a very great initiative from Ghana to the rest of the wonderful world. And he's been talking not so long before you got on about interest rates and how we are supposed to be competing with people who have interest rates as low as 2%, 1%, some even in the negative, very, very patient capital for entrepreneurs like him, Nana Sassi and Mr. Albert Tete here to be able to do their things and ply their trade with great felicity of style. That is almost absent in our situation. If I walk into a bank now and tell them I want to stage a play and that I need a loan to stage a play, I'm sure they will look at me in a certain way. Don't you think?
No, Johnny, you are absolutely right. And for me, those are the matters that must agitate our minds, and we must be honest about the analysis and the proposals that we put forward. I agree with Mumin, I agree with you that the environment is not too friendly. Historically, we have seen what it is like. And that is why I'm saying that when there's a conversation about a certain 8.5 billion support to SMEs that's controlled by the youth and women, then we should be moving in the right direction. And we at the NY, for instance, our interest is in tracking how this is utilized and if the real beneficiaries are being targeted. And that's important for us. Policy should move away from our intentions on paper and must reflect on the realities on the ground. And policy must also be where we make our allocations. And so, yes, when we talk about the creation of the enabling environment, we are discussing things like the interest rates that my brother Mumin discusses, and which I agree with. But we also have to understand that, well, it's a process, it's not an event. Bringing down the interest rate from where it is now to become competitive on the global space is a process, it's not an event. But I must admit that this is a process that has begun. But even as we wait for this process to unravel so we can yield from the dividends, we have to also be pragmatic and take some serious steps to deal with some of the serious challenges that we have. And that is why when we say that the elsewhere MBSSI has been reconditioned into the GEA, the Ghana Enterprises Agency, and if you check the volumes of support that is now being channeled through the GEA towards the entrepreneurial drive of the youth of this country, well, it may be woefully inadequate, but it is a movement forward. And you look at the NEIP, what it's doing with the presidential pitches and the support, particularly to the young people, the training that we should be giving. Yes, we can ask for so much. There is a lot that can be done, but at least we see indications that there is an effort to move in the right direction. And so we should continue in advocating for those conditions, and we must be biased in prioritizing young people because we have everything at our advantage. We have the time, we have the energy. Productivity is higher in our youth. And so even the banking sector, private sector, they may be, but I think that they must also leverage the time on the young people have. If you want to give loans, somebody, my mother is 85 years, probably she will not go and ask for a loan. So let me look at somebody who is 50 years or 60 years. Why would you prioritize giving a loan to that person, even if the person has collateral, over a 30-year-old young girl or a 40-year-old young man who has more time in terms of dealing with paying of that money? And so it's a conversation that we have to have across the board in the public sector, in the private sector, and so on. So I am very aligned to the idea. But we must reject strongly any suggestion that the problem is the young people and that they are failed. Are there challenges? Could we have done better? Well, definitely yes. We have our own shortcomings as a people. I have witnessed support at my authority. I have given support to a number of young people who I believe have misapplied, who I believe have not been too committed to what they themselves put on paper. But these are individuals that we can deal with, but we cannot suggest.
I hear you.
That because one or two young people may have disappointed us in one or two endeavors, then we can generalize it and suggest that the young people of our country are not up to standard and have failed. I reject that suggestion strongly.
Is it your view that the young people of this country have not been angry enough to demand for what is due them from their country and from their political leadership over the period because they have been cowered into some sort of submission?
No, again, that's not a suggestion I would want to make. I mean, I do not see the value of anger in this conversation. It is a question of participation, and it's a question of getting involved in the decision-making process. That is what we must encourage the young people to do. And that's why I, for instance, as a young person, I put up myself to get into elected office. My brother Mumin and my other colleague, as eloquently as they are making the point, we should come together and create a critical mass of young people who are not speaking just on the radio stations. It's fine to speak on the radio stations, and I don't have any problem with that. And we should encourage more of that even. But I'm saying that beyond that, we must also get our feet into the door and have our voices where it matters the most. And so our participation, our engagement in politics cannot, for instance, be reduced to just electing other persons to take decisions for us. It must also be about electing young people who are qualified and are competent to do the job. And that's why I particularly am excited that increasingly we are seeing more and more young people walking the corridors of power. We have had the youngest Attorney General in Ghana's history, for instance, within this dispensation. That should be a good sign. It should motivate us that young people must also get involved, and we must take the decisions that matter to us ourselves. Like we say at the National Youth Authority, nothing for youth without the youth. So if we are just going to be suggesting anger, I think that we will be trapped into a situation where people can take advantage of us and get their own political and parochial interests, while it is a vicious cycle that is created. Oh, you get angry today, tomorrow somebody comes, then you get angry with the person, then tomorrow another person comes, then you get angry with the person. I think that is a scheme that is being designed and being discussed so that politicians who want to take over the levels of power take advantage of our frustrations. I don't think that the question of the young people getting angry is a conversation that we want to even encourage at all. I don't think so.
Okay, I want to get back to our brothers in the studio, but let me put this to you. So Nana Sasi made an earlier comment, for example, that we clamor for young people to be given an opportunity to lead, and then when those young people are given an opportunity to lead, will the same questions that pertained before those young people were given the opportunities to lead be there as though nothing had changed? So, for example, if I put in an application for a document and I complain that it took 2 weeks, maybe more than that, to get the documentation done, and then a young person is swapped to go there and it takes way longer than the 2 weeks that I had complained about, then really that young person may not have delivered. So for me, having grown up in Kaneshi, I know what the Kaneshi Sports Complex looked like. I know handball, volleyball, basketball, swimming, football. We used to catch golden fish and all of that. Now, we flipped the coin, made you the leader of the young people in this country, and the youth authority is supposed to be constructing those resource centers, beautiful by all standards. But I go to Ho and I see the place is being left weedy. I go to Kaneshi Sports Complex, I see the place has been left weedy. And we just saw the Olympic happen in France, and our poor performance and poor showing. Clearly, the young people in this country have been shortchanged in that direction, don't you say?
Well, I disagree with you. You have made some important observations But I think that let us proceed the conversations properly. In the first place, when one young person admitted, granted without admitting that one young person has probably failed, if you may, that does not mean that they are all young men who fail. You are doing well. My brother Mumin is doing well. These are shining examples. We need to amplify them. And so I will not even accept that criticism of me, because you see, have you checked Koforidia, for instance? Have you checked WA? Have you checked Axim? We are developing sporting infrastructure across the country. You discussed Kaneshi and you have discussed Ho, and I agree with you that the situation in North Kaneshi and the situation in Ho is not the best of its kind. I would have wished that we would have completed work on the Kaneshi Sports Complex and then the whole Youth Resource Center and stadium. But you see, we must also admit that we are working with funding. We have been imperiled because of the limitations. Our economy is not in the best of its shapes. COVID-19 and the geopolitics of the world has dealt a serious blow to Ghana, and many sectors are impacted. So we receive funding from the central government through the DACF, and so we used to the law that establishes the National Youth Authority gave us 5% of this Assembly's Common Fund. Two NDC MPs went to the Supreme Court to have a declaration that was an illegality. And so the 5% that we thought we were going to get, and that is why we started developing these projects, we no longer get 5%. We get way less than that, because the Supreme Court, in the view of the DACF, has made a decision that negatively affects that position of the law. And so we are not getting the kind of funding that we thought we would get when we started building the project. And so it has encountered some challenges, but that cannot and should not be interpreted to mean, if it was an 80-year-old person who was the chief executive of the National Youth Authority today, and the funding for the project does not come, there is very little that the 80-year-old person can do. So it is not a question of the age, and that's why even on the flip side, on the other side, in my comments, I spoke about competence. I'm not just talking about any young person. I'm talking about qualified and competent young persons, people who have demonstrated their capacity and also the penchant to deliver on their mandate. Those are the young people that we are encouraging, that they must get around the table and must also be involved in the decision-making process.
I see. Pius, we'll leave it here. Thank you very much for your time. We're grateful.
Thank you very much, my brother.
That's Pius Enam Hajide is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority. It's 48 minutes after 8 here. Chief Momen, Nana Sase, Albert Tete just joined us, and Courage Nobi, who is also the Deputy Director of Policy for the Movement for Change. Gentlemen, welcome, Albert and Courage.
Thank you very much.
I'll come to Chief, because I want him to. This question I asked about the interest rate, what you had mentioned, you had Pius's answer. I want a quick reaction from you, Nana, as well. About whether or not things have changed when we put young people in there. I want to get your reaction, but let me get a quick thought from you. Are we getting the policy right in terms of raising our young people, enabling them for them to be able to compete, have a global view of things, and to plant themselves on the global stage? Are we getting it right?
All right. Thank you very much, Johnny, and good morning to all your listeners and viewers on social media, and to my good old brothers, Chief Mumen and Asanse, Albert, and to our director for the National Youth Authority, Chief Executive Officer.
Yeah, it's a big post.
It's a very interesting topic that we're discussing this morning, and it's also very important and timely, a very important conversation to have. And so when I was coming, and when I saw that my Pius Ajide, who now wants to go to Parliament as MP for, I think, the Sojaman constituency,
right.
was on board, I was happy because he is managing youth affairs in this country.
Right.
As far as the 18 million plus young people in this country are concerned, that is our boss. He's the one responsible for managing our affairs.
Right.
So you put questions to him, and what I hear is what I call the day to me syndrome.
What is that?
Motivational speaking. Rather than tell us specific policy interventions that are supposed to yield a certain outcome, because development is never an accident, it's deliberate. So the question is, prior to 2016 elections, I was on the streets because there was a promise of some 10 youth resource centers, multipurpose youth resource centers. There was a promise of a theater in each district.
Right.
A theater in each district. There was a promise of
Each region.
in each region,
district,
yes.
yeah.
There was a promise of an education that enables us and makes us globally competitive. There was a lot of promises that's got to do with young people, plus the almighty jobs question. And so 7 years down the line, I would have expected a certain level of accountability that ABCD has been done. And even when you point out, and that is where I get disappointed, and then as I said, was making the point, when young people get the opportunity to be in these spaces, we should not forget that we are ambassadors for the rest of the young people outside. For the rest of the young people outside. So most often it comes across as tokenism and all, but it is an opportunity, it's a foot in the door. What have we done with that? So the accountability is fair and square on Pasajide and his team at the National Youth Authority. It's fair and square on Adwa Asante at Folklore Board. It's fair and square on Eko Vincent Asifua, who is now deputy minister, and all the young people in those respective spaces. And you realize that they've not been fair to the rest of us.
Why do you say that?
What has been the result? Different from what we used to see when 65, 67-year-olds were occupying those same positions.
Well, enabling environment, that's what Pius says.
Which
that
enabling
the enabling
environment?
environment should be there for you to be able to.
No, but you are there. So as CEO of National Youth Authority,
Right.
how have you created an enabling environment?
So, for example, he says that, look, we set out to construct these resource centers. Somebody goes to court, and then based on that, we do not get the monies that we had envisioned or envisaged to get.
Do you know the travesty?
No.
These resource centers were started in 2018. It does not take 6 years to build 5,000-seat auditoriums. It doesn't take 6 years. I met him at a forum where the Ghana Youth Manifesto launched its manifesto, right? And I put the same issue to him. That this was last year, December 2nd. If it's taking you more than 5 years to build a multi-purpose youth space for youth development, the physical structure, let alone the management systems that will keep the place running, that certainly is unacceptable. And 7 years down the line is the same thing.
But if you don't have the resources to build, what
But
do you
you
do?
have the resources.
Where
That is the thing that I don't get. You have the resources. It is very, very annoying anytime any government official, right from the presidency to the district chief executive, says that we do not have the resources. What resource don't we have? We have all the natural resources, name them, and the likes. And what is intended for us to do is to prudently manage those natural resources, get money from it to develop our human resources.
And that you say we don't do.
We are not doing it.
Okay.
Check our management of the mineral resources of this country. Check our management of our forests. Check our management of our water bodies. Check our management of even the leveler of our educational spaces. You know, so when you have not been able to put deliberate policies in place, and the reason that it is so is that in the entire Fourth Republic, we've been governing by procurement.
Okay.
So once we get the contract given and whatever kickbacks are paid, the rest we don't care.
Okay.
So there's no proper supervision of these
I hear you.
constructions.
Let me bring in Albert. Albert, let's start from the schools. Are we raising the children right to appreciate their place, first of all, in national development, and also for them to be able to grow to become a chief woman and Nana Asasi and Albert? I'm talking about children in primary school and basic school.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you speak to some of them in the public schools and you find that they are lost. They literally don't have another view aside going to school, break time, having this, taking their classwork, taking homework, coming back the next day. That's the routine that they know. Whereas their counterparts in international schools have been exposed to all manner of things. Are we raising them right so they can grow to become, again, a Chief Moment and Anasasi and Albert or a Courage View of Pius Ajide? Are we?
It's a big no, an emphatic no here. And the reason being that we've not even revised our systems to put in the practicality of what we learn. Knowledge, there's a difference. People interchangeably use this knowledge and wisdom, but these are two distinct things. Knowledge is the acquisition of facts over time. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. And even the Bible admonishes us. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 7, it says, wisdom is the principal thing, but in getting wisdom, in all that get understanding.
Wisdom, yeah.
It's the same wisdom that makes you build a house, but it takes understanding to establish it. So we have younger people in this over the years, and we are raising the next generation. The next generation, and Pius even mentioned that you have a mechanical engineer. I studied science, I studied engineering. And the person goes out of school, university, and cannot even do basic electronics at home. So it is an error. And if we cannot restructure these things, revise our educational system to be able to enable people to be the best of themselves, irrespective of the fact that they come out and they don't get employed in even governmental and non-governmental sectors. But they themselves have the requisite skills that makes them important, significant in life. So it's a big no. We are not doing the right things at the basics. It is all about you and poor. And I remember Thomas Sankara's sayings. He says, the enemies of the people are those who keep them ignorant. So if our own people do not care about the educational system, I always tell people, if we have leaders who do not focus on education, it means they want to manipulate us.
I see.
Because when the people are wise, they cannot be manipulated. So the politicians leverage the ignorance of the masses. Why then do you expect them to restructure, to make you wise? They will always keep you ignorant. The Bible also tells us that the poor man, the voice of the poor man is not heard. It means money matters. How are you going to make money until you have the knowledge and the wisdom to make wealth, to multiply wealth? So if the politician comes back to keep using money to bait you, then you think there will be an improvement. We'll keep running in circles.
Okay, Pius and Amhajide joining us back on the phone line, Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority. Pius, welcome back. What has triggered your return?
Yeah, Johnny, can you hear me, please?
I can hear you. I'm asking what has triggered your return.
Yes, just a quick reaction with respect. My colleague who spoke after me, I heard him make some comments. I believe I should just clarify and indulge me 1 second. I think that, Johnny, you didn't ask specifics that I failed to answer. I mean, we could have a conversation the whole day about the specifics, and I will indulge you and give you honest answers. Any fair listener to the questions you asked me will admit that I dealt with the matters that you raised, and you didn't ask me any specifics. And for somebody to suggest that there is a certain dare to me syndrome, like a motivational speech, I find rather unfair. I do not know what specific question you asked me that I failed to respond to.
Well,
when you asked the specific about the whole sports, the Youth Resource Center in the North Carnation, I gave you the specific response. And I said to you that we are faced with some funding challenges and that there is a Supreme Court ruling which has affected our funding, and that has derailed and delayed our project.
But I mentioned, you heard me mention that to him. So what exactly is your point of disagreement?
Well, I heard him. I didn't hear you. I heard him.
Well, I told him that, and my panelists in studio can bear me witness that I said somebody had gone to court and because of that, DACF.
Beyond that, really, the point I wanted to make is that young people must acquire the habit of not throwing the baby away with the bathwater. That is not the kind of critical mass that we are hoping to create to amplify and push young people forward.
I don't understand you.
I'm saying that let us not just enjoy in criticizing, even if there is no basis. When a young person has done something like I did with him, even though I didn't hear him speak first, when I heard Mumin and I thought that he made great points, I suggested that those were great submissions that were being made. But I feel that there's so much, if you may, negativity within the space that even when honestly there is reason to admit that some good is happening, we find joy in just criticizing just for the sake of it. It doesn't help the cause of young people in our country.
Pius,
as well.
So, for example, when I put a flyer out, the key question that people were asking me was about young people in leadership and the perception of corruption that hangs around a lot of young people. And so many examples have been made about young people get in there. There's a get rich quick syndrome. You see a young person get in there in 4 years, the person has a house, he has cars. And people have sat in classrooms and worked with those people. Sometimes some of them didn't even have work.
Can you say that again, please?
Now, I'm saying that when I put out the flyer, one of the things that people said was that, well, the get rich quick thing that comes along with people who get into political authority, suddenly young people, it was a big topic. A few of the comments that came were like, okay, can you ask him about the Australian visa scandal and whether or not he has been a good ambassador for a young person who got political authority? I didn't think that it was as an important conversation. But if you are now drilling down into it, then maybe you don't want to answer.
Fine.
Well, you want to answer that to clear the air, because you see, that has been around your neck. They say there's a report. I don't know if 62s has seen it. I have not seen it. I'm not sure any of my panelists have seen it. Now, so question is, have you been a good ambassador on that score on behalf of the youth?
Johnny, I agree with you. The same, we must hold the young people, even in public service, to the same standards that we want to hold the old people to. I'm not saying that we should treat the young people any differently from we would treat any other demography. No, that is not.
Hello, Pius.
Again, hello.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm saying that if there are any concerns that we have about the performance of a young person in office, I will be the first person to encourage that we should interrogate those matters. But I'm saying that we cannot just go on a criticism spree. Criticism that is not grounded, criticism that even in spite of explanation that has come, we will still continue just because there's a certain pressure to paint everybody in public space, especially the young people in public space.
So Pius, help us. Pius, help us.
If I may just
go ahead.
If I may, because you addressed that matter.
Go ahead.
And I don't have a problem if anybody wants to interrogate the so-called Australia visa scandal. I don't know why we term it as a scandal, because it's not clearly a scandal. But I don't have a problem even if anybody has decided that they want to interrogate that matter. We can give education to the people. It's a simple matter.
So what is the education?
Minister,
Pius, let's do the education now, because you say it is not a scandal and all of that. People insist that.
If you allow me to just respond to it, you will see I'm dealing with it. I'm saying that anybody who is honest to the facts, anybody who is informed about the processes, knows that a deputy minister is not a visa. How do you call them? The ones who give visas at the embassies.
Consulate.
I'm not a consular officer, and so I don't give visas. Number two, anybody who follows the process and wants to be educated about it will know that when you are going for international games, it is the games organizers that do these things and not the ministry. For instance, if you are going to the World Cup, it is the GFA, which is the representative of the FIFA in Ghana, that will do all the facilitation. Even the Minister of Youth and Sports will be the guest of the GFA. It's not the other way around. When we were going for the Commonwealth Games, visa applications, even my own visa, I had to apply through the GOC, who are the games organizers. And so ministries do not get involved with the acquisition of visas and so on. But I know that in our country, people can throw about allegations, and the fact that an allegation has been thrown about, then we must all accept it line, hook and sinker. I mean, people have said all kinds of things about the former president, for instance, but there have been explanations and clarifications. Are we supposed to just take it that because an allegation has been made, then it means that it is true? In that case, then I can just make an allegation against you, Johnny, right now, without any basis. And just because an allegation has been made, then it means that it is true. We must apply due process.
So why was your name mentioned if you are not supposed to be in
Say
the
that
mix?
again, sir.
Why was your name mentioned, and the fact that
But
we
I cannot-
we subsequently
Okay.
also heard that they say there's a report. I've interviewed you on TV3 New Day before, where you told me that there is a report that exonerates you. I have not seen that report. I'm not sure Sixtus has seen that report. Not Nana Assassin, not Chief Moment, not Albert, nor Courage Nobi in studio. Where is that report, if there is indeed a report that exonerates you?
No, Johnny. I cannot speak as to why my name was mentioned because I did not mention my own name. But I can suspect that because I was Deputy Minister for Youth and Sports, I was Chairman of the International Games Committee. And so, well, I am a low-hanging fruit for politicians who want to create mischief.
Right.
And so they will go for me. So, but I didn't mention my name. So it will be difficult for me to explain why my name was mentioned. But the good thing is that when my name was mentioned, we had an establishment. We had a president that said that, look, hey, whether you are guilty or not, your name has been mentioned. Let the police CID investigate the matter. And the people who investigated me, some of them joined the police force long before I was even born. So I don't know them. They don't know me. We don't have any relationship. I trust that they did their job. And in the outcome of the job that they did, they told the world, they cleared me, and they said to everybody that no, the gentleman was not even involved in the process. Whether somebody chooses not to accept the findings
Pius, have you seen the report that exonerated you?
I have heard the report that has exonerated me.
So
I don't know what the difference is.
So you have not seen the report?
The president who asked the police to investigate the matter, the police reported back to the president. The police don't report to me.
But it concerns you. It concerns you. So a copy of the. I mean, Pius,
but Johnny, if I accuse you of rape right now and the police investigate you and they clear you, the police are not going to give you a copy of the report that cleared you. Is that how the police works? You have to educate me on these things.
Pius, was it indeed a case where people were presented as journalists who were indeed not journalists under your watch as supervising ministry, a deputy at the supervising ministry? Was it indeed the case that persons were presented as journalists when indeed they were not journalists, and then at the time you were deputy at the ministry that supervises all sports and youth activities in this country? Was it true?
Johnny?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Say that again, sir.
I am saying that the allegation that journalists were presented, and indeed it turned out to be the fact that they were not journalists, and at the time you were deputy at the sports ministry that supervises all things youth Johnny, and sports. Was it indeed the case?
For the 10th time, I am saying to you that nobody came through me. Nobody made an application to me. Nobody came to me for any visa assistance because I neither have the mandate nor the locus.
No, I'm not saying you have the mandate. I'm asking you that did it ever happen? Not through you. Did it ever happen?
Did it what?
Did it ever happen that people were taken out of this country as journalists when indeed they were not journalists? Did it ever happen?
Yes, of course. I know that people went to Australia and some of them were asked to come back. I know a journalist.
Okay. Pius, we'll have to leave it here.
Listen, let me just finish.
Right.
I met a journalist from Kumasi. I know him personally. He came to Ghana. He came to the office to tell me that he was deported. He was not asked to enter. They asked him if he was a journalist, what gadgets was he entering into Australia with, and who did he have? He said, I'm traveling alone. He showed them that I'm going to record with my phone. And then the Australia border official said, no. Because they have a view of what journalists should do at these international games. But you and I know that in our country, within the limitations that we have, our journalists do a good job, sometimes with the mobile phones. You know that. But when a border official in Australia does not know that and does not believe that a Ghanaian journalist could go to Australia with a mobile phone and do their work, and therefore believes that the person is not a journalist and asks the person to come back, how is that the fault of Pius Majida because he was deputy minister?
Okay. Pius, quickly, in 1 minute, today is International Youth Day. What is your program for the youth?
Well, we are on our way to the Pentecost Convention for the National Youth Conference, It's a 3-day event that we are having. Today, His Excellency the Vice President will join us to celebrate the young people of our country and also to address some of the issues of concern to the young people. He will deal with our aspirations and our desires, and also we are giving opportunity for some breakout sessions to develop to discuss some other thematic areas: digitalization, entrepreneurship, the whole issue of vices, teenage pregnancy, drug issues, and all of that.
Okay.
So there will be many breakout sessions to discuss these things, and so we are now at the Pentecost Convention Center at after Gomua Fete after Kaswa. That's where we have been holding the National Youth Conference, the third of his kind. Ever since I became Chief Executive Officer,
I hear you.
It's in the National Youth Authority Act, but no Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority did that. When I became Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority, we have been having this National Youth Conferences on a regular
thank
basis.
you. We're grateful for your time. Thank you very much, Pius Enam
Thank you, my brother.
He
Thank
is
you. Thank you.
the Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority. We'll take a quick break. When we return, the gentlemen are in studio: Chief Momen, Nana Sase, Albert Tete, and Courage Nobi. You can always join us on social media at 3FM927 with your thoughts and comments. And if you have questions, we'll get into it. When we return from the break, we'll be looking at the mental strength that the young people of this country must have in order for them to be able to withstand all of these things that shake them, and then how they survive in the interim. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
The luckiest
Star 712 hash.
luck is everywhere for everyone, yeah.
Here's to the friends who dialed star 712 hash and found no regrets. To the investors who struck gold. To the health workers who diagnosed luck with precision. To the tough guy who couldn't hold back his tears. To the passionate fan who couldn't contain his joy. To the seamstress who turned her hard-earned stitches into a bundle of happiness. And now, here's to you. Your next big win is right here.
Luck is everywhere for everyone, yeah. The luckiest.
Dial star 712 hash. Now join in the luckiest winning celebration. Every 1st July 2024. Over dial star 712 hash. Now I can to take it as a group, individual, and now even as a community. Now win the Sika Kessie. Prizes are Kessie in the community draw or go for the grand draw on the 30th of November 2024. Unlock your luck with star 712 hash. Now join in the winning streak now.
The luckiest.
Star 712 hash.
Luck is everywhere for everyone, yeah. The luckiest.
Come on. Good boy. Honey, look, he's crawling. Good job. The new Cerelac Wheat and Maize has the combined goodness of wheat and maize grains fortified with iron, vitamins, and minerals also found in fruits and vegetables. To prepare the new Cerelac Wheat and Maize, just add milk. Enjoy your little one's big moments at less cost. Cerelac, care for them, count on us. This advert is FDA approved.
The best in the morning is on 92.7 Sunrise on 3FM. 3FM 92.7 Urban Lifestyle Radio Station. The best in the morning is on.
Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. What's it beside there with Superfly Man? How do we get the young people to be supermen in their own right? mental strength. And have they tried? Well, the conversation now is they have tried, because Pius agrees and we all agree that we have tried. But have we been given the opportunities? Listen.
Figurehead, you know, Penia, Obi can this year, executive presidency. Omani na Penia or that, no. And now, or buy one Cabibia, and your political platform to cram put or buy. And now, just say, oh, this is idea, depending on how we are so be about. Oh, I would have. I'm not here, no, Maguna, my Mona, Debbie, I ever catch the Munabuche. And Penfonio, my mother, Debbie America. Asamba ne se ye kwakapa ye ya ye se ye kwako hu abrewa ya ka se ye ko hu mo no na mugu na muti aye ye se nkube na mugu no nyamo ne ye se ye ko hu mo ye se ye kwako hu abrewa no eye opani ya wanyina nyini ya bibi wodi tiri ye kwako hu no mo so mpeni fo okuro mu nyina na mo de on their policies nti now president mani ya political importance bi aye ya anya political rally anya hwe na anya munya botre muhia na mo ye mono ma na mummaye mumpenifo na ya say policy nti na so na di obi atem democracy na ba ozo obi ebie na o tempenifo so ye anya possible say be jai man kwara no nko amai mo hunu ye na ma wa mo ntiase mo ya ma jije jama badwe na mo ne na mprom ase ni ade bie ni mutiri.
Katie Amont is Minister for Energy. Chief, let me come to you. Mental fortitude for the young person. I mean, you hear some of these things and you're always being doubted. I mean, I'm sure that when you began and you said, I want to do Wagbajeke, Mansa World, I'm sure somebody looked at you and said, you're dreaming too big, slow down, pipe down. How do you develop that mental fortitude in order for you to compete on the global stage like you're doing now?
I think that one of the major difference between this generation and previous generation, as we've said, is the access to information, right? So right now, just with your phone, you can see the amazing things that the young people are doing around the world. When I started Heritage Theatre Series in 2015, another theatre project started in the US, which was also focusing on their history. In fact, an aspect of their history called Hamilton, which is a musical theatre production. Right. Hamilton is now one of the most successful productions on Broadway. Hamilton has grossed over $1 billion, you know, in sales, you know. And the guy who produced Hamilton is almost like my age, you know. Right. He's in his late 30s, right? And fast forward, look at where he is, look at where I am, you know. So the difference is really about the environment. It's not about the talent, you know, about the environment. So me sitting here, seeing what I can do, and just seeing others do it in their territories. I mean, this is one of the most
Somebody
important...
will say you look successful. Look at you, nicely ironed.
Oh, nah. Hey, Ghana,
you shut that nicely.
As for the iron in there, we all iron. No, even that, you know,
you have
those
to iron,
civil servants iron more than everyone. But how many of them, especially if clerks and, you know, the lower ranks, you know, surround upon our ton of khaki.
Khaki,
you know,
fine line.
Down there, it was grilled into us in secondary school. So my point is that when you have access to all of this information and you see the groundbreaking work that others are doing, and you know that those people are no more intelligent than you, that's one of my driving force. One of my mantras has always been that if they can do it, why can't I?
Right.
If people can build successful mega corporations in the arts, in other fields, why can't I? Right? The only difference I know is in my environment. So as a young person in our part of the world, in Ghana and Africa, you really need to be a fanatic for your vision, you know, and that's one of the major problems. And I understand that the system is such. Look, I've been on this journey for almost 2 decades now. I wouldn't even say I've had a big break yet. I'm still working towards that big break, right? So the gestation period for us in Ghana and in Africa is usually longer than the gestation period for those, you know, in advanced economies. That's one of the disadvantages. But until we are willing to do that work, so we need to see ourselves as pioneers to be able to do that work. Because when I also do it, then it makes it easier. Another young person who is in, you know, Ghana will say, but if Chief Moment can do it, if he, and as I say, courage, if these young people who we are familiar with can, you know, make great strides, can make great progress, then why can't we? And that is how you begin to change the psyche of the people. So we need examples. And for me, one of the things that I've been contemplating about, you know, is where does the change come from? Because when you look at the problems that we face on our continent, nation building, as you know, Karen might have hinted, is a product. It's a product of deliberate policy, deliberate effort, usually transcending multiple administrations.
That's correct.
For me, when I look at the Fourth Republic, where we've been going around the circle. I wouldn't say we have undergone any massive transformation that is changing our economy in such a way that we're empowering people. Yes, there's been some seemingly some kind of progress, but obviously every government will build roads, construct some schools and hospitals. So the basics, we've been seeing a few of the basics, but the real social, economic, political transformation, the big bang that we need to turn our country into a tiger. For example, how we saw the great leap, China, from its dark days into where it is now, from Singapore. That kind of governance that we need to deliver those kinds of economic results and serious transformation, where the young people are empowered, where there are jobs, where the poverty rate comes down, where unemployment rate comes down, where the quality of life rises up. We are yet to witness that kind of seismic shift, in our development, and that would have to be as a result of different administrations keeping their foot on the pedal. But in this country, I'm at least old enough to remember when President President Kufuor came into power after his first term. The mantra was that they had laid a solid foundation for the nation to take off. Right. So President Kufuor left, President Milt came. After the first term, the mantra was what? They had laid a solid foundation. After President Akufo-Addo's first term, the mantra was that they have laid a solid foundation. And even in this election season, the mantra coming from the ruling government is that because of COVID-19, blah blah, they have now laid a solid foundation for the economy to take it. So we have been at the foundation stage.
For how many years? To build a solid foundation. You dig, you excavate, you lay the blocks. Then you fill. And then you come and fill again. You put water on it.
And then another government comes and say, no, this foundation is a proper foundation. I have now come to also lay a foundation. So my point is that we have been laying foundation in this country since the beginning of the Fourth Republic. So the superstructure hasn't yet, been erected. So I have been thinking, where will the change come from? Obviously, an obvious choice would be the executive presidency, which has all the powers. But someone said the president is just one person, right? At the end of the day, the president works with ministers, he works with institutions, he works with the civil servants. But where would that change be triggered?
Let me bring you into the conversation and ask you, how do we put in the work? I mean, people see you, they see Curry, they see Alberts, they see Chief Mohammed.
So many more on scene.
Charlie, that's the guy. Nana is on the big stage, is in Dubai, is performing for a certain opening. Say, Charlie, I want to be like Nana Sasi. But what work do you put in?
What work do we put in?
Yes, for the young people, what do they need to know that Charlie and that form?
How many hours of sleep, bro?
They have to be told.
No, there was serious note. So you skip, say, a Friday to a Tuesday, and just accumulate it. You've had about 7 hours of sleep or 9 hours of sleep, because during that time you've had to hit about maybe 4 regions of Ghana, show up on stage. Stage has its principles: keep up a good face, deliver a good performance, and deal with all other things in the background. I've always said we've had writer workshops where young people, I want to learn, I want to be like this, but come and let me tell you all the hacks I've put in place, the DIYs.
Right.
The person won't show up. And you want to flood my DMs with maybe 3 books you've written. How am I supposed to deal with such a situation? It is not possible. Somebody just wants to get on Facebook, put in write a poem because he has a lot of friends. Oh, this is good. Jump on that. You want to give him some critical analysis for free,
right?
And he feels you are
trying to beat him down.
No. If it's good, it's good. If it's not good, that is the culture from which I grew up from, even a literary culture. My life has been the life of a literary practitioner. Do you get my point?
Right.
So young people should just realize consistency produces results. How many people are we setting off with? Many are called, if you actually the refinement. Eventually, how many get to the door? So we all applaud effort, but we reward results.
That's correct.
So everybody will just jump on the train, but you must know it is a hard work. Chief mentioned something about passion.
Yeah.
How much do you commit to your work? I'll give a simple example. You sleep at 9 p.m., I sleep at 2 a.m. We're put on stage at 10 a.m. Do you expect the same results? No. The benefit you have is maybe you've had a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And what are you using that to achieve?
Thank you very much. Maybe Charlie, your sharp brain, you've had all the work done. But I put in some extra hours to ensure that I have extra capacity, to keep moving. But I always ask myself, Johnny, look, this is Nana Sasi. There are so many other people on named who are doing amazing things. Right. And these are people who even are educated, have access to a place like this. What of the thousands, the millions who do not have this access, this hope? Sometimes I hop on a boat. I want to share a few business ideas. I'm actually, okay. So if I was in your shoes, right? If I was a boat driver, I'll have a radio especially. Listen to some key stations and know, okay, or buy newspapers. Okay, in a conference, we will have this conference is here, this one is there. When I move my car,
go in there.
I know the spots to hit, right? So I get into my car, I buy a box of water.
Right.
So the new passenger who sits in has a new, Charlie, I have a newspaper in my car. Immediately what have I done? I have shifted
the paradigm. And
so all these are like prostrate. How can we tell the one that service from Belly? You need to do something unique. Otherwise, if you do the same thing over and over again, you get the same results over and over again. Do you get my point? So it's important to own it. Nobody will come and magic anything for you. But you realize this, when opportunity comes, imagine all three of us sitting here, we are praying for a car or a bus. Good. Let me use a bus, for instance. I don't know if you drive a bus. I don't know if you drive a bus. I could drive a bus, for instance. So we want, give us some. The moment the bus comes up, what happens? The one who knows how to move it now takes advantage of it. So while you wait for opportunity, what are you doing? Prepare to meet opportunity, right? And every opportunity deferred simply means it places you in a better position to take better advantage of it. You accelerate it the moment you receive all these things. That is why you see that when Ghanaians move into different spaces, they thrive. They make the best out of it. What is here? Johnny, look, as I sit here, let somebody come and put a bag of 100,000 USD or whatever, a bullion van, diamond, chief, Albert. By the virtue of three guys in here, if it is word that you need to secure that money, that money will not leave here. Why? Because these people have constantly and consistently done what? Prepared themselves to take advantage of opportunity when it shows up. Now, let me go back. Sorry, Nanajwa is no longer at National Folklore Board. But let me state for the record, she left a fantastic
legacy.
Look at the likes of Hayford Sion. Look at what Hayford has done to Ghana Library Authority. Charlie, fantastic work, which shows that young people, when given the opportunity, just as you're opening opening papa, the same, like the night and day comparison I gave. Do you get my point? But today being International Youth Day,
right?
Look, I saw the flyer 12/11 on somebody's status. That's how I got to know something was happening. How much do we put into things of the sort after the reparations conference? Chief, you were there at the reparations conference. I was like, how many young Ghanaians got to hear of this? This would have been fantastic if we had this someplace in the museum where all the children coming on tour would get to see it. You were asking about our basics.
Yeah.
Look at the books we used to see the kids citizenship and very shallow.
Shallow.
Answer na low nakao. That is shallow sign below. Shallow. Very weak. I pick up the books. I'm like, somebody has written history of the military force in Kumasi. I read it. How many lines? 6, 8. Very shallow. And I wonder who approved those books.
Naka.
I've seen my face. I've seen Chief's face. I've seen in something as listed as poets, rap musician. I'm like,
the man who approved it is in Parliament now as an MP.
Do you get my point? Yeah. Please let us do right by ourselves. We have fantastic brains here. Look, people out there in other countries come for these brains. Take them out there to go and do amazing things. And we sit here with these same people.
Albert, apprenticeship. And for those who have traveled around, I mean, Chief, Nana, everybody in this room, apprenticeship is big. Holiday jobs are big. It helps you build capacity. It helps you build confidence for the world of work. It gives you soft skills, etc. Do you find that happening here for the young people?
No.
Apprenticeship?
Not at all. It's not.
What can we do?
I think it has to come from the point of when over time certain things mold people to become people who others will also look up to. So if we're talking about apprenticeship and the check maybe casting back to maybe a decade, and they see people who actually went through this process and they are not worth emulating, it wouldn't encourage anyone to take that. So it means there should be a proof to that, to actually encourage someone to move in that direction, and that is what we don't have in the system.
Courage. Young people and ambitions. Some say young people are too ambitious sometimes. that they want to take on things that are bigger than them. They don't want to take their time to learn, to understudy somebody. They want to be their boss right from the get-go. I mean, what do you say about that as well?
Thank you very much. I think it's a very wrong assertion. It is actually natural for young people to have aspirations. You know, I mean, without aspirations, what is the man? You know, but what is important for me is the policy environment. If you look at the kind of policy violence that has been visited on this country, and just a typical example, under President Nkrumah, we had a 7-year development plan.
That's right.
Deliberate strategy. In 1967, when Buzia and Co came, they said, oh, it is too long. So they brought a 2-year plan. So 7 years was too long, right? Fast forward, Vision 2020 under President Rawlings. When President Kufuor came, he said 2020 is too far. So the Millennium Development Goals. Yes, Millennium Development Goals, 2015. 2015 came to pass. SDGs, now President Mahama.
It was MDGs.
MDGs
now
at the time.
SDGs.
Yes.
Right.
President Mahama comes and says, you know what, let's have some long-term planning. So you have a 40-year development plan. I still remember the spoken word that my brother Chief gave at that event.
Professor Niwe Thompson and the
Yes. Immediately, the NPP came to power. You had senior minister at the time, Osafo Mafo, said that, 40 years is too long. 7 years was too long under President Nkrumah. So 2 years. 40 years too long, so you need to do something at 10 years, 5 years, short term, blah, blah, blah. Nothing happened. Now, guess what? Yes, guess what? President John Mahama launched that in 2016. I think early 2016.
Yeah.
Do you know that 40-year plan?
Actually 2017, I think.
No, Mahama was in 2016.
I'm trying to remember when we did it.
2016.
That 40-year plan that was supposedly long. Do you know that it has taken this government, right, 7 years to now begin to review?
It is now.
Last year, they said they are now reviewing the 40-year development plan that was launched in 2016. And I can assure you, I've read bits of it. Nothing has been implemented from it. That kind of violence, policy violence, because the most important tool for a government is policy.
Right.
It dictates where private sector puts their money. It dictates where government itself puts their money and everything. When you have that kind of environment, you know, there can be no deliberate outcomes. And that is a deliberate planning to stifle potential, to stifle destinies. You know, and
so it's not a case that the young people are overly ambitious.
Not at all.
It is because there's a misdirection.
But if you look at what our colleagues elsewhere are achieving, even what you describe as over ambition on our part,
that's the thing I hear when they give a young person a position.
Because these are minds that struggle to understand the single point that young people are not just leaders of tomorrow, but are partners in today's development. They must be part and parcel of the process that leads to it. See, look at Rwanda. Young people doing wonderful things because the policy environment allows that. For example, my brother here, Chief, right, put his creativity to the wheel of this nation in 2017, Ghana at 60.
Do you have to go?
No, I have to go there. Up to today, all the work he put in, your crew and cast is about 200 plus, right? Do you know that half of his money, 100,000 Ghana cedis, has not been paid up to today?
Time value of money.
How do you expect, Chief, with his Mansa World? And I have seen Mansa World. I've seen the project proof and everything. This is a major export for this country. This can put us on the map the same way Abedi Pele put us on the map, the same way President Nkrumah put us, the same way Sibisa put us on the map. But I'm telling you that whereas the government has not put in place any deliberate policy where Chief Movement, because one of the things that young people don't have is access to capital.
Right.
So if you have a policy that says that for a young business under 40, you have an opportunity to lend at even single digits. Not a 30+%, but 30+, but single digit. Chief can walk in there, and I've had this. He has a plan. There's a full business case for it, and get funding. But if it is over 30%, 35%, 36%, he can't. Now the government that has failed to do that has failed to pay him for putting his services I mean, to that government.
This was done Ghana 60 years and beyond.
2017.
Ghana 60 years and beyond.
Yes, Ghana 60. 2017. When you have that kind of environment, how does this empower the young person in JHS, in SHS, who is seeing Chief Movement to want to go into the creative arts?
Maybe Chief doesn't need the money.
For the record, I actually stopped chasing the money after that.
You stopped asking for it.
No, when it came out and all the controversy,
yes.
But I mean, something good came out of it actually. In the death of that moment, because I was like one of my lowest points. I was always ready for the challenges. I wasn't ready for that challenge because government project, I'm sure we'll get our money. So that was frustrating. But I mean, it was just 100,000. So in the death of that, I was like, why am I worrying my head about 100,000 when others are producing with millions of dollars and are bringing billions of dollars in revenue? So that's when I actually developed Mansabot. I was like, I'm going to develop a project. I'm going to look for the right partnership, the right funding globally to build a product. So for me, I turned that negative energy,
but that's not fair to you and to other creative entrepreneurs who have.
I mean, that's the challenge. I mean, I'm just a microcosm of the challenge we have in our country, right? And he's hitting at it very well, because one of the reasons why we keep on changing things all the time is that we're running what now a lot of people are beginning to identify as one of our biggest challenge: procurement economy, right? If there's nothing in it for the politician, there's no incentive, to go. So whenever government comes, they kind of like change some of the contractors, leading to judgment debt, sometimes leading to spending money again on similar projects, right? So that's one of the major ills in our society that we have to find a way of dealing with. Otherwise, we'll still be doing the merry-go-round, because at the end of the day, every new government wants to empower its people. Maybe we should have a quota, and say, okay, politician, we know that you have to chop some money or give some money to some people. So out of that contracts that we give, 30% should be sole source, 70% should be above board. Until we start from a place where there's an above board conversation, where I call it the acupuncture solution. Sometimes when the body has a problem, you find nerve endings and you pinch it for it to have a ripple effect. Right now we want to stop corruption, but we know that we will not wake up one day and corruption goes to zero. So at least let's create safe zones. The president can say that as for this project, nobody should chop from it. So we should have above board projects to ensure that there is continuity and there's development. How is it that every time we spend money on redoing a road, in a few years that road spoils, we have to redo it? So you realize that the amount of money we're even using in constructing our roads is like going into a leaking basket. But if we have above board projects, then we know that these projects, at least they have a lifespan of 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. Even in spite of the challenges, even in spite of the corruption, we are still going to be making some strategic headways. And I think that for me, that's one of the major solutions I'm pushing for, that there should be above board projects. That does not go through the usual political, wrangling and all of that, so that there's a vision that every political party, at least, connecting to the national development point that,
we'll get into what the political parties are promising for the creative space for the young people of this country.
But Johnny,
yes.
before you go,
I wanted you to give us a poem, but you will.
They've been hot on the whole thing, and I'm really enjoying it. But to buttress the point, when you talk about you asked him about ambition, you asked me about apprenticeship. You see, we couldn't even say much on that, because what we need to really address, Johnny, is the fact that elderly people find it difficult to appreciate the wisdom of younger people, and wisdom is irrespective of age. And that is why they see them to be overly ambitious, and apprenticeship isn't also producing the kind of results it needs to produce. Because these old people, once they see you trying to do things at the age when they couldn't do it, instead of appreciating and supporting you, which in science is taken to help the person to move up, irrespective of how feeble the younger one can be, they don't do it, they don't appreciate it. And that is one of the things. It's evil, it's demonic. And that is why we're still running in circles. So until we eliminate that, and we find a way to push younger people to be the best of themselves, irrespective of age. We watch the West. We watch younger people, 3 years, 2 years on a stage of creativity, exhibiting their creativity. And all we do at home with our kids is shout, wow, amazing, this and this. And our kids go on to watch on YouTube. What prevents the younger ones, the young African, from standing out to be an exceptional one as well? So until we change our perception, our mentality as elderly people in our community to appreciate that wisdom is irrespective of age, and we need to support younger people to do exceptional works at the very younger age. Then this evil will continue.
I hear you. On that note, Albert will give us a poem.
Hey, but we have...
The best in the morning is on 92.7 Sunrise on 3FM.
So it's been the same old stories as young people when they sit, we keep telling. Because way back, we had our forefathers sitting under the great baobab tree, the great Iroko tree, or whatsoever tree you want to name it, sipping cold palm wine that sets coldness down the spine. They brooded over the negativities of the land with no inspiration of making mind-blowing preparation for us, the younger generation, even if they had no determination to cause changes in their time. And this really disturbs me as a young African, you know. Even today as we seated, we're still discussing the negativities of the land. When are we going to make progress? Because darkness is all that we see appearing. When are we going to have our lives seeming very appealing to everyone in our society? You see, Johnny, it really disturbs me as a young African, you know, because despite all we've got, we still despise the despite of our land and travel to foreign lands to get deals done as though we never had any mark done in our own lands. But permit me to gladly ask, even before exiting Africa, haven't you heard of the Dellas or Tedulas and Dangotes who could sign multiples of checks, of the millions of checks we go begging for? Or is it that we have no respect for our own? Or is it that we value not our own? So I look forward to that very new Africa, Osagyefo said. That our independence will be meaningless until it's connected to the total liberation of our African continent. Osagyefo again said that we must unite now or perish. What prevents us as young people in Africa uniting to fight for the best of our land? If we keep looking to the West to be the best of ourselves, then we'll end up as the West. We need to unite now, present a united front to fight for our own land. Thomas Sankara said that you cannot make fundamental changes without a certain kind of madness, because it took the madness of the people of old for us to be thinking with clarity and acting with clarity today. It means together we must be angry enough to restructure this very system. Evil only prevails when good people do nothing. Where are the good people in our land? Johnny, they told us that our future lies in our hands, so we grew up looking into these very futures of ours from the basic seeds that we've sown. Yet till date, we've not still found arable lands to permanently plant our dreams to enjoy bountifully of the harvest thereof. And this has left us with several thoughts and several questions like, how could we be proud of our forefathers if the fathers of today keep telling us that we've been planted by rivers, yet our roots keep searching for water from afar? For how long would we keep searching? Deliberately reaching out to foreign zones for nutrients, yet till date, we've not seen any signs of maturity. Or is it that in one way or the other, directly or indirectly, we've been ill-fed by these very people? Because it's highly unbelievable and terrifying to be fed with the knowledge of being planted by rivers, yet our roots keep searching for water from foreign lands, from foreign zones. Permit me to gladly ask, are our rivers dead? Are the rivers in our own lands dead? Fathers, please answer us. We sincerely want to know if our rivers are truly dead, or is our leaders who reside by the banks of these very rivers who are causing mayhem. Man them, I don't even understand them, but we never wish to praise a fire go bend them. Enough respect for them. But in a land where leaders of our own land do not hesitate to wish and send their condolences to families abroad. Meanwhile, we had the youth from families that condo is less in these very families fighting for these same politicians. Then it's a terrible situation, and we need to enhance and change these very narratives. I look forward to that very new Africa where the young people will sit. They will be the best. They will invent something that will be of global significance to everyone in the world.
Albert, thank you.
The best in the morning is on
I'm hanging out with Chief Moment, Nana Sase, Albetete Amafu, and Courage Nobi. Earlier you had Pius and Amhajide. Guys, let me throw this in. Do you think that somebody under 40 in this country, because currently the constitution says if you are not 40 you can't be president, but do you honestly think that somebody under 40 can become president and can do well?
Yes.
Sure.
The yes is not strong.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you say?
I mean, I guess really it's not a matter of age, really. Someone can be 80 and be disastrous, 80 and be exceptional. Someone can be 40 and be disastrous, 40 and be exceptional. I mean, when you actually look at our leadership over the years, from our independence, our leaders were quite young, from the independence struggle all the way to the military regimes, to the PNDC. They were amazing. Rollins was in his 30s, right? In the 32. This was the guy who just came from his 20s to become leadership. So we've actually had maybe that may also be a point for us to reflect, because we've actually had quite some, young leaders, and Nkrumah was also young. Nkrumah was in his late 30s, early 40s, and then into 40s, right? So we've actually had quite some young. It's of late that the age has been stretching, but I think that it's possible. I mean, it's definitely very possible to have a young person who will be exceptional.
Let's look at what the politicians are presenting. What would you want the political parties to present to us as we get into an election? Because that's the social contract for the youth and for creative people like you who are also entrepreneurs looking for a way to create employment, create entertainment, education, and also to get Nukufio for yourself.
I was reflecting that if I were ever to run for office, I mean, just as a creative mind, your mind is always wandering in different directions. That my manifesto promise will be back to the basics. Because really, in this country, we've had so many policies, so many discussions about ideas about what to do. For me, it boils down to the political drive and back to the basics. And what are the basics? The street lights should come on. When you turn the tap, the water should flow. When you press the switch, the light should come on. I'm picking lines from my poem. When you heap the rubbish, the collectors must come. If we rethink the basic necessities of life, things that does not require rocket science. Let's say, look, we can't compete with, Germany anytime soon when it comes to engineering, right? Or America when it comes to its Silicon Valley innovation, or China when it comes to its mass public production of goods and services for the world. If we have that mindset, okay, what can we do? Let the civil service work. Let's not starve the civil service. The basic things that has to happen, as Courage has just entered, functional society. Because when you begin to create that functional society, that will begin to translate into the bigger things. Because development is really piling bricks on each other. It's about how systems work. It's like when we travel abroad and we go like, hey, Charlie, the trains come on time, the cities need this. Right. Those are basic functional things. But you realize that the thinking that will go into developing a functional society is the same thinking that you need to develop into to create an ambitious society. So for me, really, I wouldn't say I'm expecting any light bulb policy from politicians again. All the things that we have said we want to do, let us do them. Let us go back to creating a society that is functional, that works. Let us implement the things that we've talked about over the years. Obviously, let's have strategic visions and plans in place. Let's have a certain consensus about a certain direction that this country is going, that irrespective of any political party, that direction will continue. So let's create spaces, as almost like what I said with corruption, that we should have above the board projects. We should have a consistent project that transcends political lifetimes. One of the criticisms that people make against Nkrumah is, he invested in so many things for 23 years. Right. Some of the factories were moribund, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, development is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Obviously, you don't get everything right. But if we had continued with the same drive and vision and purpose that Nkrumah started off, would have been a better place. So even if some of the factories were not viable, then they could have been viable now. That's how development works. There is no development that happens without a price. If you go to the West, what was the price of their development? Over 4 centuries of slave trade, direct human right abuse that helped to build their industrial cities, right? That was not an ideal situation. What was the price for China's development when they closed, themselves to the world, starting with the People's Revolution with Chairman Mao, the kinds of abuses that they suffered. So even with Nkrumah's regime, what would have been the price for our development? If that price was that some of those policies were not immediately, impactful impactful to the country, at least we could have kept some of them going. You see the likes of that Kosovo Dam. When Nkrumah was building it, our population was around 5 million, right? But it is still the main source of power production. The most practical thing for Nkrumah to have done was to have built a power plant that would have served the population needs of the time. When he built, the Tema motorway, what was the population of Tema? Tema was still a village but he had a vision in mind. Because if we do things for the now, we will never do things for the future. And unless we are doing things for the future, that train of development we will never see. So now our politicians are always thinking about what are the short-term things I can do now to show that I'm working.
Piecemeal approach.
Yeah, okay, I'm building this, I'm doing this, I'm employing this. But at the end of the day, if we are all focused and every political life cycle is focused on those piecemeal approach, then that compounded development that we need to see, the things that must compound to really turn the fortunes of our nation around, will not work.
So you want to see a bigger picture?
Yes. So my message to politicians is right now is that let's just get the basics right. Right now, I'm not looking for any lofty promise. Okay. I'm just looking for a leader that will come and say, look, why is it that our street light never work? It is my policy to ensure that our street lights would work. Then you begin to interrogate the system and see what are the inefficiencies in the system that is allowing something as basic as a street light not to work. I want a politician who says that, look, if I promise that I want a clean city, why are our cities not clean? What is so rocket science about having a system where rubbish is collected and dumped at a particular place? When you begin to interrogate those seemingly mundane things about our existence, then you are actually interrogating the system and ensuring that systems work. And once systems work and are efficient, then your bigger development vision and things will take care of themselves. So back to the basics.
Nana, what do you think? What do you expect from our politicians, for the youth, for creative people like you, and for entrepreneurs as well?
What would I expect from politicians?
In terms of their manifesto offerings?
Charlie, the truth. Like the reality.
You're asking for too much. You want the truth to be told? By which politician?
Then nothing. If we can be very realistic, then let's not make promises we can't even deal with. You see, because promises are what will make people build some level of expectations. But we're talking about the basics. Now I'm looking at a politician who can make civil service work. Because Charlie, more of the time we have politicians as excuse, we have them as the scapegoats. The real
cabal and trouble causes
is a certain layer beneath, or maybe 2 layers beneath. Somebody who can ensure that the decentralized system of government is properly working. Once that subsystem is working, it simply means the politician, who in most cases is a figurehead, will leave. Another one would come, but the system is working. The system typically does not even thrive on the politician. So before somebody say, oh, Johnny, oh, Charlie, today they should do this, that's a producer. That's a civil servant. You are the politician. You are the one everybody sees. You are the one everybody hears. Oh, chief, your car cry be like you make you deserve. Signed it. Do you get my point? Somebody who can commit to say, guy, for once, like if I be Abonsam, I know go change. Make my agents do good things more. They will talk to me. I'm good. Do you get my point? So if we can have that system also to work, you walk into a government office. There was a young man who went for national service. He was given a bunch of files on Thursday. Charlie, the next Monday, guy presented it to his supervisor. I was like, Charlie, that thing was supposed to work for 3 months. This is a real story. I'm not joking. For 3 months. And how do you expect such a space to function? So we have them heaping all the dump at the politicians' doorstep. How many are the politicians in this country? What is the number?
But then let me complicate that a little. I've also been thinking about this. But where would that change start from? Who would hold the civil servant accountable?
The politician.
He answers to somebody.
At the end of the day,
politician. That's what I'm saying. I'm looking for somebody who will come back to me to tell me, say, this is what it is. But they're in the minority to a large extent. Look, they're in the minority.
But they hold the ultimate power, bro. Because the civil service will not transform itself.
Charlie, see, if we be very honest to ourselves, maybe there are things I can't say on radio.
Of course. No, we know about the leaks in the civil service. Yes.
No.
We should see
no. Charlie, see.
Because I've been thinking, where then does the change start from? Because the civil service.
So let us have a politician. Let us have who is committed, to hold the line and say things must change down the line.
The politicians benefit from the inefficiencies of the civil service.
Thank you.
So
That's
they are
why I'm
not
saying.
incentivized
So there must
to
be
transform it.
someone. Otherwise, I don't want to hear anything from a politician.
You know what happens? You know what happens?
Yeah.
So politicians get in there, the civil servants force them to conform.
Yes.
If not, they will mess you up like they did to Malamisa. They will mess you up.
But there's a solution for that.
Well, so they will literally mess you up. I'm dealing with a case at Kolibu, for example. CT scan machine, MRI, not functional. We're hiring some private people are the ones running it. Somebody for 5 years gone there, and then he went onto the media space, talk about it. It's been given a query. And then I said, okay, this man has seen people die.
Yeah.
He has seen too many people lose their lives for 5 years because the machine is not functional. He suddenly speaks after 5 years.
Back to the basics.
And then his boss says, oh, he should have told me. He said, he gives you report every single week.
Constantly.
So
and what is your own supervision? Are you going down to see what is working?
So a politician will tell me he's committed to ensure that system works. Because if it works,
Albert,
to really forget about the lofty visions and
back to the basics. Albert, what are you expecting?
Johnny, just as my brother Chief said. So for every success there's a process, and we have the people in our system. I am looking at the government who is compassionate, because compassion compels you to take action, and you take the right action to ease the pains of the people. So you can do, just as Chief mentioned also, you can have, there's corruption, government go chop kakra, it's in the system, but let us make sure that the system is working. Just like you find politicians, you go to university and people are organizing buses to take students home.
Right.
If you actually fix the system and we have buses running, we have the train
State
system,
transport running.
are you going to do this to win votes from students? So it comes back to how the question was asked, like the topic of discussion. Have the youth failed the country? And you can come back and say, at this point, yes, because they are allowing themselves to be manipulated, misused, used and misused over time. Because the one who goes to university and comes back and cannot critically think, cannot discern the times, and can avail him or herself to be misused by the politician, then it's a terrible thing. Because once your basic needs, it's like the Maslow's theory, you go through the basic need, the social needs,
self-actualization at the top,
and you are rising. You will not be looking at the politician to make certain things work, because the system is already working, which is why we place them in that capacity. He wouldn't come back to get you buses to take you home on your vacation, and because of that you come back to vote for that politician. So it's a terrible situation, and all I want is, irrespective of the money you want to chop at the top, be compassionate. Make sure that things are working so people can level up.
DB.
Yeah.
Okay, Courage, we have just about 2 minutes to go, so do 1 minute for me, please.
Thank you.
Okay, it would be wrong to ask you what are we to expect from the policy, because you are a politician as well.
Yeah, so
what are you offering? What are you offering?
Awesome. I think if you look at the policy tracing I did, it points to one thing, that usually because of the lack of consensus building, all these violence happens. So one, you need a leader.
You mean policy violence?
Policy violence, yes. So you need a leader
context.
Who has the track record of proving performance when given the opportunity. 1, 2, who has the humility and the mindset to build what we call a government of national unity. When that government of national unity is instituted, what do? Create the enabling environment for destinies to thrive. And to that end, that leader must have 4 things. The right vision, backed by competence, supported by an action-oriented mentality, and the most important of all, which I think answers a lot of the question, a leader who has integrity. Without integrity, nobody can change anything. Without integrity, because what you say is one thing, and what you do given the opportunity is another thing. And I believe that is why we are here today. Prior to 2016, we had lofty promises, most of which has not been fulfilled, and that's why we stand where we are and all that. What that will do is to create a Ghana situation, a Ghana narrative, and not a political party narrative. And in that collective approach to doing things, we can begin to do things. And that is why I say that as young people, we should not be afraid to change course. So I have boldly taken the decision to change course to be with Alan Martin. Why? Because he promises that opportunity to begin again, to begin to do things anew. The Government of National Unity, pick the best from NDC, the best from NPP, the best from outside the political space. For example, I do not know why Albert Nana Asante or Chief Mumen cannot be Minister for Tourism. You know, for example. And they are not politicians. They are not politically aligned. You know, when you put that together, then you can begin to have a serious... So
give me the tourism
so Johnny, the simple message, particularly to young people, is that in 2024, let us be bold to take a new direction, change course.
You should give the steer to you.
No, change course from the two political parties, both capacity and intention, everything we've already seen, to an independent candidate like Martin, and chart a new course, new narrative for development.
We have to change our course now. Yes. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
Very grateful that you could join us. Chief, are you blessing us with a poem?
Yes, he is.
Closing ceremony.
It is possible that we too can be among the high and mighty of this world, that our cities can be connected with bullet trains and ooze with magnificent buildings like pyramids touching the heavens within a well laid out ambience of greenery, serenity, and timeliness. It is possible that we can be worth more than our gold, cocoa, and oil buried in our earth, and that our talent and passions and competencies buried within us can be the single most important resource which we can harness together with integrity to drive our progress.
Thank you, Chief Momen. He is a creative entrepreneur, playwright, and also the curator of Mansa World, and it is possible. I'm sure he did it for Dr. Bao.
From Wagbajake, you know, I used to use it as I had a poem. It is possible.
It is possible. They should be paying him for intellectual.
I always say this. If I was that preacher man, I want to do something crazy. You know, come and preach to you about the food prices at the gates of Samaria, and tell you just by the food prices at the gates of Samaria, we know that a 24-hour turnaround of the economy is possible.
Right there is also a poet, and Albert Tete Amafu is with Verbal Transformers, and Courage Nobi is Deputy Director of Policy at Afrafranto Movement for Change. Now, time for birthdays quickly before we